Good day. Today we will be discussing about the FINMA Education Network, dynamic learning program of the Bernito couple and the different strategies to introduce scientific approach in the life-changing development of education. The stakeholder of the dynamic learning program, DLP, as mentioned in the article is Dr. Chris and Dr. Marivic Bernito, donors and other parents who helped in the planning and implementation of the DLP. How did their strategy address the way secondary education was being taught in the country? What future did they see? What did they sense? And what principles guided them about education and the management of the educational institution? The adaptation of the dynamic learning program, DLP, in secondary education had undergone a series of intellect arguments and discussions among the participants in the three-day conference in Davao City on April 22 to 24. 2015. The event was attended by 185 participants from 48 schools and Drive Chris and Dr. Marivic Bernito who had pioneered the DLP pedagogy. The primary focus of DLP is secondary education, especially the high school students. Moreover, it is developed to provide educational opportunities to financially and academically poor learners in the rural areas to improve their performance in national examinations. This is the key point of the said conference. To acquire reliable feedbacks on the implementation of DLP, the Bernitos developed a platform of critical thinking, obtain feedback from the implementation of the approach and identify problems encountered and promote practices which are proven successful. Thus, an annual conference on the system was established to address educational issues and problems. The Bernito strategy, that is reversing teachers' and students' participation by making it 30% for teachers and 70% for students addressed. The strategy offered a new teaching strategy which proved to be more effective than the usual way of teaching. What objectives and targets did they set out for themselves and the institution? To achieve their targets, what radical refocusing did they need to achieve in order to reach their targets? The couple had an objective to improve the quality of education with the help of science. This was coupled by their efforts to have closer look at education in the country. This must be an effect of their international engagements in science and education. To achieve their targets, they had to make some radical decisions in their lives, like their comfortable living condition in the city to embrace and live the simplicity of life in the rural areas. Moreover, they had to oversee by themselves the Central Visayan Institute Foundation after they took over its management, paving the way for them to introduce their dynamic learning program. To sum it up, their love of science and education has led them this life-changing program for the people of Jagna and the rest of the country. The three-day dynamic learning program has focused on a case study on the adaptation of the system in the tertiary level institutions owned and operated by the FINMA network. The case focus on the implementation of DLP in Cagayan de Oro College, Arellano University, University of Iloilo and the University of Pangasinan. Furthermore, the case discussion focuses on identifying the differences between tertiary and basic education, the elements of the DLP approach that could be possibly adopted in the tertiary level and the extent to which other elements could be discarded or modified without sacrificing the integrity of the system. The participants of the DLP conference worked out on the preparations of materials fitted to the learning objectives to save their students from the cost of textbooks. They have agreed that those who have been in the service or senior teachers will be in charge in the development of learning materials. Another point of discussion is the 8 hours face-to-face contact of learners inside the classroom, which is purely listening with the lengthy lectures. The principle of DLP, which is learning by doing, could improve the academic and skill performance of learners. However, the term doing will depend on the nature of assigned activities. Lastly, the division of labor to the faculty following a set of qualifications. This aims to identify who will be responsible in the different phases of DLP approach. The Bernitos, whom they called themselves as master teachers, will prepare the learning instructions and facilitator will supervise home-based learning. The salary received differs where master teachers are paid higher than facilitator. What results did they achieve? Their strategy had been implemented well. Based on the DLP conference, they have foreseen that DLP is applicable to both secondary and tertiary level of education. The Bernitos perceived that one of the problems in Philippine education system is the lack of expert teachers in science and math. The proposed solution is the division of labor between teachers in the DLP, whereas the teaching facilitator will supervise learning and the master teachers will handle instructions. They believed that learning could not be only handled inside the classroom, instead, learning is possible at home. The couple faced a bleak situation, yet they managed to foresee a good and bright future of education as they reversed the way education was being taught in the country. Their selfless dedication to science and education led to the opening of a new way of educating the youth regardless of their economic status and capabilities, showing that poverty is not a hindrance to obtain a good and decent education should the prevailing social system respond positively, with agents doing their best to implement such social changes. The Dynamic Learning Program, DLP, as piloted by the Central Visayan Institute Foundation, has brought different awards and recognitions in the national level. The impact on secondary students have manifested on their improved performances and nationwide examination. With the recognitions and researches, they have decided to implement the DLP approach to both secondary and tertiary level, especially those learners who belong to below marginal family income and poor academic scholastic rating. The teaching facilitator will be responsible to supervise home-based learning while the master teachers will develop and prepare instructions to be utilized. The division of labor among faculty of instruction will mean standardization of salary, whereas master teachers will receive higher salary as compared to teaching facilitator. Create independent learners and empower the youth. Thank you for listening. An investment in knowledge pays the best interest by Benjamin Franklin.